Tim Murphy and Tasneem Raja at Mother Jones put together a map of the places that John McCain wants to fight in one way or another militarily. So for everybody listening on the radio, I'll break this down for you. They separate it into different categories. Now, all these places are places that he wants to intervene in one way or another militarily, but the strongest category they call salivating. So John McCain is salivating to attack the areas. Then the second category is serious, so he seriously wants to attack an area. And then the weakest of the categories is soundbite, where he said maybe a handful of things that, loosely imply that, hey, I'd like to get involved in this place or that place. So let me go ahead and give you the breakdown here. The place that places that he's salivating to fight: Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. So if we lived in John McCain's America and he got to call all the shots, which he almost kind of did, we would have 4 wars going on right now. I'm sure all you guys would love the idea that you fucking work hard day and night and all of your tax dollars are going to kill innocent brown people overseas. But that's what John McCain would like to do. He seriously would like to attack Iran, Nigeria, Bosnia, Kosovo, Kuwait, and North Korea. And the soundbite places he wants to attack: Mali, Sudan, China, Russia. China and Russia. China and Russia? That's World War III, dipshit. But of course he runs his mouth like a fucking drunken sailor. I'll fucking bomb them! They piss me off. And Georgia, of course, it's not Georgia in the U.S. It's Georgia, the one that Russia invaded during the Bush administration. He wanted to get involved there. So if you count that up, what is that, about 15 places he wants to invade? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the modern-day right-wing ideology. And to be clear, as I always try to make the distinction on the show, this isn't something that your average Joe conservative Republican wants to do. In fact, if you look at the polls, your average Joe conservative Republican, they're pretty much in agreement with libertarians and progressives on foreign policy. We all pretty much have the same standard about foreign policy, where we say, we really don't want to use the military unless it's, actually to defend the homeland, like a matter of last resort. Nobody's like, hey, let's send these guys into Kazakhstan to defend something for a situation we don't know anything about. Nobody really believes that. But the thing is, and John McCain highlights this difference, when you talk about the Republicans on a federal level in politics, who are all bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex, all those defense contractors, now all of a sudden they all love war. So what we have is a system where our elected representatives and elected senators, they don't give a fuck what we think. They don't care about our opinions or our beliefs or our feelings, even though it's a democracy, and on paper, theoretically, that's exactly what they should care about. They're just like, no, I'm getting money from Raytheon and Boeing and Halliburton and KBR and all these other defense contractors, so, hey, we gotta use this armament somehow, or else I can't keep giving them contracts. So let's invade, let's bomb, let's do this, let's do that, and they always find cute little excuses. They're always like, hey, we signed a treaty in 1897 that if anything ever happened in this remote region of fucking rural Vietnam, we'd get involved, so let's go. Yeah, but we don't agree with that. We don't like that. And again, if we live in a democracy, the idea is whatever the majority of people believe, as long as it's not a constitutional issue, you're supposed to carry out their will. And John McCain is the perfect example of putting his middle finger up to the polls, while at the same time arrogantly arguing like he's standing up for a silent majority. I mean, think about it. Here's a guy who still wants to be in Afghanistan. Only 17% of the country still wants to be there. That means that the war in Afghanistan is more unpopular than Vietnam was at its most unpopular point. I mean, when you put it in perspective like that, isn't it, incredible that we're still there and that even the Obama administration tried to get us to stay there another 11 years with that agreement that they were working out with Karzai? I mean, it blows my fucking mind. And look, to be fair, the reality is that the Republican side of the aisle, they want war with everything and everybody everywhere. Okay, we know that. That's well established. But it's not like the Democrats are that much better. We were saying this going back to 2009, 2010. The problem is that you have the Republicans who are for every war and the Democrats who are for some wars. Obama's the perfect example of that. He's like, oh, well, come on now, guys. Let's be adults. Let's pull out of Iraq. Let's not be stupid, okay? But what? Continue in Afghanistan? And that was his argument. Yeah, well, Afghanistan's the good war. Iraq's the bad war. It's all bad. Look, I got no problem if you wanted to send SEAL Team 6 around and put a bullet in bin Laden's head to, respond to what happened during 9/11. But the idea that you invade a country and you occupy it for 10 years when there's less than 100 Al-Qaeda operatives there, as our own CIA said, okay, when the idea was we're trying to attack Al-Qaeda, well, then now this is just a fucking bad joke. It's a bad joke that we're all watching and the American people are screaming, can we stop wasting our tax dollars for this stupidity? And the final thing I'll say is it's counterproductive, okay? John McCain's whole belief system on military intervention and American imperialism, the same thing that unfortunately a lot of the Democrats believe too, okay? All this mindset that we need to do some amount of war, that's totally counterproductive because there's been so many studies. The first one was in 2007, and they came up with the now infamous phrase, the Iraq effect. And what they found is because we're killing so many civilians involved in these different military conflicts overseas, we've now increased recruitment for Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Isn't that amazing? That now all these different militant jihad groups have popped up when they weren't there before, and their numbers are increasing because it turns out when you have the big bad Americans coming in and, killing your aunt or your uncle or your nephew or whatever, people go, what the fuck, man? I wasn't anti-America before, but now I'll pick up an AK-47 and defend my homeland along with the Taliban.